two friends my age, who I grew up with since childhood. One is named Mako, and the other is Narumi. Mako is actually Narumi's cousin. Though they're cousins, they're the same age, and even look somewhat alike. The three of us went to the same school from elementary to high school, so we'd go to and from school together. In our free time, we'd hang out together too. When we got to high school, with hormones kicking in, I gradually realized my feelings for Mako were starting to change. Mako's smile, her tone of voice, the faint scent of her, and all the little things that make a teenage boy fall into fantasies. Everything about her captivated me. But I kept these different feelings to myself. Narumi, on the other hand, after entering high school, became more outgoing and lively. She was great at basketball, and one of the top students academically. Like her cousin, she was very popular at school. To outsiders, the two of them had a lot in common. But to me, they were completely different types. After we entered high school, our friendship remained as strong as ever. But one day, Narumi suddenly, without hiding it, confessed her feelings for me. She told me she liked me. Although I had sensed Narumi's feelings for me since we were young, I didn't feel the same way about her. So I told her directly, "I'm sorry. The person I like is your cousin, Mako." Perhaps Narumi already knew, so she didn't blame me after I rejected her. But from that day on, she started to distance herself from us. After graduating high school, Mako and I went to the same university, while Narumi attended a different top-tier school. But our schools were in the same city, so we still kept in touch. Sometimes, the three of us would still hang out together. But Narumi became much quieter and more reserved. During our gatherings, she seemed to always be watching Mako and me interact, which made me feel a bit pressured. And so, the slightly delicate bond between the three of us continued until we graduated from university. After entering the workforce, our lives started to change significantly. I became an office worker, living a 9-to-5 life. Mako became a journalist, while Narumi changed the most. After graduating university, she made a lot of money in a short time. Her style became mature and glamorous, living a somewhat luxurious life. The connection between the three of us wasn't as frequent as before, but our bond remained strong. However, one day, Mako suddenly told me that in a few days, she and Narumi were going on a trip abroad together for about a month. I jokingly replied, "Bring me back something nice when you return." I didn't expect that conversation to be our last. More than a month later, they were supposed to return from their trip, but I couldn't reach either of them. At first, I thought they were just enjoying their trip, so I wasn't too worried. But as the days passed, I started to feel uneasy. So I tried contacting Mako's family, only to learn that Mako hadn't called home in a while. Worried about both of them, I felt anxious every day. This went on for months, until one day, I suddenly got a call from Mako. "Long time no see. If you're free today, come over to my place." Hearing Mako's voice, I was both surprised and full of questions. But before I could ask more, she hung up the phone. Though it felt a bit strange, I decided to go to her place to check. That day, I went to her house and rang the doorbell. Mako quickly answered the door. When I saw her, I felt she had changed a little. Before, her style was always simple and casual, but now she was dressed in a more fashionable, mature way. And while she usually wore light makeup, today she had a different, more striking look. She gave me a feeling that was both unfamiliar and familiar. Though it felt a bit off, Mako was as cheerful as ever, immediately welcoming me into her home. After sitting in the living room, I couldn't help but ask, why couldn't I reach you guys? Mako started telling me what happened recently. A few months ago, Narumi and I went on a trip abroad. One day we split up for our own activities. We went on separate itineraries. That night, after I finished my schedule, I returned to the hotel, but I couldn't reach Narumi. I thought maybe her phone was just dead, so I didn't think much of it and went to sleep. But when I woke up the next day, Narumi still hadn't returned. After that, I started searching for Narumi everywhere. I even asked the local police for help, but we couldn't find Narumi. Narumi just vanished like that. I stayed there for a while, and Narumi's family flew over to join me in the search. But we never found any trace of Narumi. In the end, we had no choice but to return to Japan. Narumi's disappearance was heartbreaking and devastating. But at the time, I felt relieved that Mako returned safely. I thought to myself, maybe because of the trauma from this event, Mako seemed a bit different from before, but from start to finish, she was still Mako. From that day onward, my relationship with Mako grew even closer. Soon, we got together, and the next year, we got married. After marriage, Mako and I always had a great relationship, living a peaceful and simple life. But Narumi's disappearance remained an unsolvable mystery to us. Until recently. One late night, I couldn't sleep, so I got out of bed and went to the study alone, sitting quietly in there. Suddenly, I remembered that Mako and I once created a shared email account. Back then, Mako and I used that email to exchange diaries. Usually, the emails I wrote started with the number 1 in the subject line, while Mako started with the number 2. We'd write about trivial daily things we wanted to share, put them in emails, and send them to that same email account. I remembered that email account contained not only the daily things Mako and I shared with each other, but also many photos of the three of us, Mako, Narumi, and me, so I decided to take a look. I opened the long-forgotten login page and logged into the account. Inside the inbox, I saw 2 unread emails. The subject was to travel photos. I clicked to take a look, and they were photos taken on the streets of Korea during their trip. After looking at those photos, I started browsing our old emails from our student days. There were many photos of the three of us hanging out together. While looking at the photos, I reminisced about our student life. After reading a few emails, I started clicking around the menu randomly. When I clicked into the drafts folder, I saw in the drafts folder an unfinished email. The subject of that email was just the number 2. I opened the draft, and the content was just a few simple words. It said, "Save me." Seeing those words, I froze for a moment, then started to feel confused. I wondered, could Mako have written this randomly at the time? But why would she leave such a message? I started thinking seriously, piecing together the events one by one. First, the 2 of them went on a trip to Korea. During the trip, they lost contact for a long time. During that time, an email saying "Save me" was written. Then Narumi disappeared, and only Mako returned. And the Mako who came back gave me a feeling that was both unfamiliar and familiar. At that moment, goosebumps rose on my arms, and cold sweat dripped from my forehead. Because I finally figured it out. I finally understood why the Mako who returned felt both unfamiliar and familiar to me. Because aside from her face, she seemed more like Narumi. Currently, I'm running an agency related to spiritual abilities, mainly offering exorcisms and a place to communicate with spirits. At first, I thought I'd just rely on my silver tongue and the fortune-telling knowledge I learned from a master to make a living by deception. But one day, out of nowhere, I took on an apprentice who had psychic abilities. So I shifted the agency's main business to spiritual communication. My apprentice handles the spiritual rituals, while my main role is to assist in the process. For example, I guide the spirits to communicate with the clients and help the clients ask the right questions. Although many people don't believe in spiritual communication, whether you believe it or not. In short, I've been making a living off this for several years now. After introducing my job, what I'm about to talk about is something that happened after a funeral. That day, I attended a funeral. The deceased was the wife of a relative, of a friend of my former boss's son. Yes, I didn't know the deceased at all. I had no connection to her. I went to that funeral because I used some tactics to convince my former boss's son to bring me along. The reason I was there was because the agency hadn't had any work lately. So I had to go to such events to try my luck and see if I could pick up some business. As for why Tu was willing to take me, it's because when I worked at his father's company, I often took him out to have fun. So I had some photos of him that he absolutely didn't want others to see. That's why he reluctantly agreed to take me to the funeral. Of course, Tu also paid for the incense at the funeral. That day at the funeral, I saw the deceased's husband, Mr. Ish, unable to hold back his tears. He was crying his heart out, frantically sobbing. Surprisingly, no matter how people tried to console him, it was no use. Actually, before the funeral began, I had already wandered around a bit and gathered some information. Mr. Ishikawa's wife was named Yumi. They had been together for over 30 years, but they were separated forever in just a few minutes. Yumiko died in a tragic car accident. Mr. Ishikawa loved Yumiko deeply. For you, he sacrificed a lot. The reason he sacrificed so much was because Yumiko's way of expressing love was something most people couldn't handle. Yumiko's way of showing love was through all kinds of willful behavior. She was also a master at emotional manipulation, often using various tactics to make Mr. Ishikawa yield to her and make promises for her sake. Although this approach was domineering, Mr. Ishikawa seemed to enjoy it. So he always gave in and doted on Yumiko. In short, their relationship was very strong. To outsiders, they were like a pair of high school sweethearts in love. Honestly, I rarely see couples their age with such a strong bond. So it touched me deeply. Although at that stranger's funeral, I didn't drum up any business. Discovering that a bond like the still existed in this world made me feel I gained something valuable. However, a few months after that funeral, one morning, Tu called me. He said he wanted to introduce a client to me. Excited about the prospect of business, I immediately asked him to arrange for the client to come to the agency that afternoon to talk. At the appointed time that afternoon, I saw a familiar person walk into the agency. That person was none other than Mr. Ish. After brewing a cup of tea for Mr. Ish, I asked him what kind of help he needed. He took a sip of tea and told me, since my wife Yumiko's funeral, I've gradually started to accept her death, but the sadness in my heart hasn't lessened. The longing is tormenting me. I always feel I owe Yumiko something, and I want to fulfill one last wish for her, to ease my sense of guilt. I firmly believe her soul is still somewhere, so to connect with her spirit, I've tried all sorts of methods, like rituals, prayers, and divination, but none of them worked. Later, I heard you offer a way to communicate with spirits that can help people talk to the deceased. That's why I came to you, hoping you can help me fulfill my wish to speak with my wife. After hearing his thoughts and understanding his needs, I immediately agreed to arrange a time for a spiritual communication ritual. On the day of the ritual, Mr. Ishikawa arrived. My apprentice and Mr. Ishikawa sat across from each other at a table, while I sat at one side of the table. Once everything was ready, I explained to Mr. Ishikawa the one crucial rule he absolutely had to follow during the ritual. That was, until I signaled him to speak, no matter the reason, he must not speak to the spirit on his own. After hearing my explanation, Mr. Ishikawa nodded. Then my apprentice and I closed our eyes and began the spiritual communication ritual. After several tens of minutes, I felt the subtle atmosphere that comes when a spirit arrives, along with a sudden chill in the air. It felt like something was here. Then my apprentice stopped chanting, and I opened my eyes to check. It seemed Mr. Ishikawa's wife was ready. I looked at Mr. Ishikawa. He looked bewildered. I spoke to Mr. Ishikawa. Your wife is here. Then I began my role as facilitator. I explained to his wife why we had summoned her. I originally thought this would be an easy job. After all, at the funeral, I had felt the deep bond between them. I assumed his wife would listen to my explanation and gently speak to him. Then I'd guide Mr. Ishikawa on how to respond, and with some the job would be done quickly. But things didn't go as I expected. After I explained the reason, his wife furrowed her brow. Her expression filled with anger and resentment. Her gaze was like a sharp blade, staring intensely at Mr. Ishikawa. That expression was so intense even I, with all my experience, couldn't look directly at it. At that moment, I asked his wife, "Why are you showing such an expression? Please explain the reason." But she didn't move, still wearing that unsettling expression, and eerily silent. Then, I tried guiding her to respond in other ways, but she remained unmoved. After several attempts at guiding her, there was no progress at all. I thought, maybe his wife was in a bad mood right now and didn't want to express anything. Perhaps we should just give up for now and arrange another session later. Maybe next time, his wife would be in a better mood and things would go more smoothly. However, just as I was about to tell Mr. Ishikawa that we'd stop here for now, Mr. Ishikawa couldn't hold back anymore. He suddenly began pleading hysterically with his wife, begging her to speak. He even told her he was willing to pay any price, as long as she would say something to him. At that moment, I thought, this guy just broke the rule I told him about. But after Mr. Ishikawa said those words, his wife's expression suddenly became calm. The anger on her face vanished, and she gave Mr. Ishikawa a faint smile. Then she stood up and slowly walked to the window. Her fingers gently traced through the condensation on the glass. She wrote on the glass, "Together in life and death." Seeing those words, I froze for a moment, a wave of unease washing over me. Then, I heard Mr. Ishikawa sitting beside me ask, "What does that mean?" I thought, damn, this guy broke the rule again. Suddenly, the glass shattered, and my apprentice immediately snapped out of the trance, waking up. At the same time, Mr. Ishikawa stood up. I looked up at him and saw the corners of his mouth slightly curl into a faint smile. He pulled out a large stack of cash from his pocket, tossed it on the table, and left the agency without looking back. The spiritual ritual ended in this inexplicable situation. A few days later, I got another call from Tu. He told me there was a funeral tomorrow and asked if I wanted to go. I thought, another chance to drum up business. So I asked him where it was. he gave me a familiar address. That address was Mr. Ishikawa's home. The next day, I went to the funeral. I returned the fee Mr. Ishikawa had paid for the ritual as condolence money. At the funeral, looking at Mr. Ishikawa's portrait, I wondered how he died so suddenly. After the funeral, I heard some things from Mr. Ishikawa's relatives and friends. It turned out that Mr. Ishikawa died the night after he came to me for the ritual. He passed away, like his wife, in a car accident. But what was eerie was that before Mr. Ishikawa left home, he left a note on the table. The note read, "Together in life and death, no longer alone." Although Mr. Ishikawa's relatives and friends were puzzled by the note's meaning, after hearing their story, I broke out in a cold sweat, feeling a chill down my spine because I had a rough guess about why Mr. Ishikawa died and why, on that day of the ritual, he showed that eerie smile at the end. I suspect it's likely because, during the ritual, he told his wife's spirit he was willing to pay any price. So, after the ritual, his wife's spirit was able to possess him, control his body, and take him away the next day. Or perhaps, since he was used to yielding to his wife, and felt he owed her. When he understood the meaning behind her writing together in life and death, he smiled, accepting his wife's wish, and chose to join her the next day. In any case, whatever the reason, I think Mr. Ishikawa's death must be connected to his wife. It has to be related to her somehow. When I was in my third year of university, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. With the support of my relatives, I tried hard to focus on my studies, and, whenever I had time, I'd take a bus back home to care for my mother. But in the end, my mother left me and my younger brother. After entering my fourth year of university, the impact of my mother's passing still lingered, and I couldn't muster enthusiasm for anything. I was distracted at my part-time job, and my studies suffered too. I knew if I didn't get a scholarship this semester, the financial pressure would increase significantly, but I still lacked motivation. I was stuck in a slump, living day by day, with a just-get-through-it mindset. But one day, a few close university friends came to my place, seeing my lack of energy. They said to me, "Next week, we're organizing a mixer. The girls are all working professionals. Come along. It'll lift your spirits." Since I wasn't interested, I firmly declined their invitation. But on the day of the mixer, they barged into my place, forced me to get dressed up, and dragged me to the event. At the mixer, I just quietly ate my food, my mind wandering elsewhere. But during the mixer, a woman joined the group partway through. From my friend's expressions, I could tell everyone was stunned by her. Her name was Masako. She was strikingly beautiful, with a cool, aloof demeanor, and a touch of mystery. Despite my friends taking turns trying to talk to Masako, it was clear she wasn't interested in them. Masako seemed somewhat distracted, and I felt she might be hiding some deep, unfathomable life experiences. I, who had been bored up until then, started to feel drawn to her aura unconsciously. But I'm an average-looking guy who's not particularly witty, so I had no intention of approaching Masako. After all, her cold, aloof aura seemed entirely untouchable. But I couldn't help myself, and kept stealing glances at her. However, as the mixer was nearing its end, Masako happened to sit across from me. She suddenly noticed the silver bracelet on my wrist. She spoke up, saying, "That bracelet of yours is quite unique." I never would have expected her to be interested in something like that. I replied to her, "This is an heirloom from my mother." She nodded gently and said, "So, your mother has passed away." Then she fell silent for a moment. Suddenly, she asked for my phone number, which completely caught me off guard. I thought, maybe she wants my contact info to sell me something later. But to my surprise, a few days later, she called me and asked me out to dinner. I couldn't understand why a cold and beautiful woman like her would be interested in someone like me. Maybe it's easier to sell me something, I thought, that evening at dinner. Masako was completely different from how she was at the mixer. She was cheerful and warm, and she didn't try to sell me anything. Instead, we talked a lot, learning more about each other. After we finished dinner, as I was about to leave, she asked me, "Can I ask you out again?" I was stunned. I never imagined she'd want to see me again. So, unable to hide my joy, I immediately said, "Of course you can." After that, we started going out frequently, and our relationship developed quickly. But one day, she suddenly asked me, "Do you care about me?" Without hesitation, I replied, "Of course I only care about you." After hearing this, she gave a mysterious, satisfied smile and said, "Good. I hope you only care about me." We continued dating for a while, and eventually, we became a couple. To be honest, being with someone like her felt like a miracle to me. She was the perfect woman. Stunningly beautiful, witty in conversation, sharp and capable, and hardworking in her career. Everyone around me, including myself, wondered why someone like her would be with someone like me. Whenever I asked her why she chose to be with me, she always replied, "Because you're honest and reliable. Most importantly, you only care about me. That's enough." Thanks to I quickly overcame the pain of my mother's passing, and my life got back on track. After graduating from university, I joined a major company, working in sales. Every weekend, Masako would come over to cook for me, and we'd spend the weekend together, living like a little married couple. Such a dreamlike life was happening to me. However, when my younger brother got accepted into university in Tokyo, my life started to change. Before that, my brother had been taken care of by my aunt's family after he moved to Tokyo. As his older brother, I took on the responsibility of looking after him. So, after he arrived in Tokyo, I'd take time during work breaks to visit his school alone, bringing him some living expenses and food. This routine went on for over 2 years. But one Thursday, during work, I got a call from my brother. He said his computer broke, and he urgently needed a new one. I urgently need a new computer. At that time, I didn't think much about it. I just told him directly, "How about I go with you to buy one this weekend? By the way, you haven't been to my place yet, have you? Come over on Friday night and stay for a couple of days. Ever since you started university, we haven't really spent much time together. On Saturday, after we buy the computer, I'll take you around to have some fun." After hanging up the phone, I sent him my address. That day, after work, Yako and I had dinner together outside. While walking her home, I took the initiative and told her, "Please don't come over this weekend for now." And I explained the reason to her. Because Yako and I always spend weekends together. It's something we've agreed upon. I was worried that she might be upset because of this. But after hearing my explanation, Yako just showed a warm smile. And then she said, "I understand." Seeing her like that put me at ease. But looking back afterward, maybe I didn't notice at the time, but that smile seemed somewhat forced. The next evening, my younger brother came to my place. I gave him my room, while I slept in the living room temporarily. Since it had been so long since I last spent time with my brother, I immediately took him out for a big meal. Then we went drinking and chatting outside, talking until past 11 p.m. before heading home. After getting home, we drank a few more bottles of beer. After that, in a state of heavy drunkenness, I passed out on the sofa. However, while I was half asleep, I suddenly felt like something was moving. I sensed someone pacing back and forth, muttering to themselves. I wondered who it could be. Then, despite my drunkenness, I tried to focus and listened carefully. At that moment, I heard a woman's voice saying, "Didn't you say before? You clearly said, you only care about me? Didn't we make a promise? We agreed to spend weekends together. Didn't we?" I thought to myself. That voice sounded somewhat familiar. At that moment, I slightly opened my eyes to look. I saw a shadow, pacing in the living room, and between my room's doorway. It kept moving back and forth. Although it felt a bit strange at the time, because I was so drunk and groggy, I couldn't think clearly, so I ignored it, and fell back into unconsciousness. I fell asleep. The next morning, my brother woke me up. I quickly got up and washed up, then went out with my brother. I took him to buy a computer, then showed him around Tokyo Tower. After that, we went to Shibuya, and I helped him buy a bunch of clothes. By then, I had completely forgotten about what happened in the middle of the night. That evening I made plans with a few friends, and I took my brother along with them to a nightclub to drink and have fun. We played until very late before heading home. My brother, exhausted from the day, went straight to the room to sleep. Meanwhile, I was casually brushing my teeth in the kitchen while texting Yako to let her know I was home. Then I stumbled onto the sofa and saw Yako reply that she was going to bed. She was about to sleep before I could reply goodnight. I passed out from heavy drunkenness. However, in the middle of the night, while half asleep, I felt it again. The same thing as the previous night. Someone was muttering to themselves while pacing back and forth. "Didn't you say before? Didn't you say you only care about me?" That voice sounded like Yuck. The voice came and went as she paced. It was sometimes far, sometimes near. Then I heard that person say, "If it's just the two of us, then you'd only care about me, right?" At that point, I couldn't hold back anymore. I opened my eyes to look. I saw a familiar figure. It was Yako. She was pacing between my room's doorway and the living room, continuously moving back and forth, muttering to herself. And I could feel that her heavy footsteps carried a kind of suppressed anger. At that moment, I thought, she had just texted me, saying she was going to sleep. How could she be in my house now? Just as I was feeling puzzled, I noticed something in Yako's hand. It seemed to glint for a moment. I looked closely, and it was a kitchen knife. I gasped in fear, and from my throat, I couldn't help but let out a faint sound of terror. At that moment, the sound of footsteps suddenly stopped. The house fell into a deathly silence. I quickly closed my eyes, pretending to be asleep. My mind kept racing. Did she notice me? Then I heard her slow, dragging footsteps, moving from the doorway toward me. The footsteps came right up to my side, and then stopped. I immediately felt a presence right in front of me. Even with my eyes closed, I could clearly feel that Yako had her face right in front of mine, and she was staring at me intensely. But in the next second, a low, angry voice suddenly came from in front of me. It roared loudly. "Didn't you say you only care about me?" Her sudden outburst scared me out of my wits. I didn't dare move a muscle, cold sweat dripping down my back. But I still kept my eyes tightly shut, pretending to be asleep. After a while, that presence finally moved away from me, and in the sound of those pacing footsteps, I fell asleep. The next morning, my brother woke me up again. He said he was heading back. So I got up, got dressed, and walked with him to the station. On the way to the station, My brother asked me. That place you're renting, is it a stigmatized property? The first night, I heard a woman's voice talking, and footsteps. At first, I thought it was coming from next door. But the second night, I heard it again, and I'm sure the sound was coming from outside the room. After hearing him say that, I suddenly recalled the terrifying experience from the night. It wasn't a dream. Later, I brushed it off and told him, "You just drank too much and misheard." After seeing my brother off at the station, I went back home. When I got home and closed the door, I looked at the lock. I remembered that both nights after coming home, I had locked the door. So even if Yako had a key, she couldn't have come in the middle of the night. Therefore, what appeared in my house those 2 nights might have been Yako's vengeful spirit. Later, I didn't tell anyone about this. Yako and I went back to our old routine of spending weekends together. A year later, I proposed to Yako. On the day of the proposal, Yako, as always, asked me, "You only care about me, right?" Without thinking, I told her, "Of course I only care about you." And she, as usual, gave me her warm smile, and then agreed. Now, Yako and I have been married for 5 years. She's still as beautiful and capable as ever. We support each other and take good care of one another. Our bond has grown even stronger, and our marriage is fulfilling. But we still haven't had children. I really want to have kids. And Yako has told me several times that she wants kids, that she wants to be a mother, but I've never had the courage to make that decision. Because whenever I occasionally go out with my brother after work, to eat or drink together, just to catch up, the next morning, when Yako is cooking in the kitchen, I can always hear her muttering to herself while chopping vegetables forcefully. And every time I hear that kitchen knife slamming against the cutting board, mixed with her muttering, "Didn't you say you only care about me?" I realize that the time for having children might not have come yet.